Alex Mercer had never thought that offering a simple lunch could change the course of his life. Yet, here he was, standing in the middle of the sprawling interstellar spaceport of Oranax Prime, a plastic container in his hands, surrounded by beings he could barely describe. Some had scales that shimmered in iridescent patterns, others had multiple limbs moving independently, and a few glowed faintly, as if stars were trapped beneath their skin. Humans were still rare in these parts, and Alex often felt like he stuck out like a raw wire in a network of perfect circuits. He adjusted the strap of his satchel, wishing he had brought something more sophisticated for lunch than a sandwich and a juice pack. But as he navigated the crowd toward a quiet bench near the observation deck, he noticed her. The alien woman was unlike anything he had ever seen. She moved with a grace that seemed impossible in the chaotic bustle of the port. Her skin was translucent, revealing faintly glowing veins that pulsed rhythmically like distant stars, and her eyes held the swirling depth of galaxies. Even from afar, she radiated an authority that demanded attention. Other travelers stepped aside instinctively, giving her space, some bowing slightly, some muttering in alien languages he didn't understand. Then, without warning, she collided with him. Her elbow brushed against his shoulder, and his container nearly toppled. I'm sorry," Alex exclaimed, catching the container just in time. She looked at him, and for a moment the busy port seemed to vanish. Her eyes met his, and it was as if she could see right through him. "No harm done," she said, her voice soft yet echoing in his mind. It wasn't a sound he heard with his ears. It resonated in his thoughts, clear and intimate. Telepathy. He had read about it in textbooks, but hearing it firsthand was different. Alex noticed her gaze flicker toward his lunch. Without thinking, he said, "You look like you could use something to eat. Here, take this." He held out the container. The gesture was simple, human, almost childish in its generosity, yet it seemed to intrigue her. She hesitated. Her lips, or whatever passed for lips on her luminous face, parted slightly. Then slowly she nodded. "I thank you," she said, her voice again echoing in his mind. She took the container and examined it. "This is unusual. I accept." Alex blinked, not sure if she had expected something elaborate or luxurious. "It's just a sandwich and juice, nothing fancy." "Sometimes," she said, "simple things carry more weight than elaborate ones." He smiled awkwardly and stepped aside so she could sit on the bench with him. Around them, the port continued its chaotic rhythm. Aliens hurried past, announcements blared across speakers in multiple languages, and cargo drones zipped through the air. But for Alex, the world had narrowed to this singular, impossible encounter. As they ate, Alex noticed she seemed unusually tired, as if carrying the weight of worlds on her shoulders. She ate slowly, savoring the sandwich with an elegance that made him chuckle. "You don't eat like other aliens I've seen," he said. "Most of them would probably just absorb nutrients directly from some machine." She glanced at him, a faint sparkle of amusement in her eyes. "Humans are unpredictable. That is why I am here." Alex hesitated, unsure whether to ask more. "Here, you mean Oranax Prime?" "Yes," she said, "but not for trade, not for politics. I am observing." Her gaze turned distant, scanning the vast expanse of ships and travelers outside the observation deck. "I observe the currents that bind this galaxy, and now you have drawn my attention." Alex felt a shiver run down his spine. He didn't know if she meant it as a compliment or a warning. "Me?" he asked, almost laughing at his own disbelief. "Yes, you," she said simply. "A small act of kindness can ripple farther than you imagine, even across the stars." Before Alex could process her words, the spaceport alarm blared. Red lights flashed, and a robotic voice announced, "Warning! Cargo destabilization in Sector 7B, evacuate immediately." Panic erupted. People screamed, drones scattered, and Alex felt the ground vibrate beneath his feet. He saw a crate near the observation deck wobbling precariously. His instincts kicked in. "Move back," he shouted, grabbing the crate and trying to stabilize it. The alien woman watched silently. He felt a strange sensation, almost like a weight pressing down on his mind, and he looked up to see her eyes glowing faintly. But she did nothing obvious. No telekinetic powers, no force fields, just quiet observation. Alex worked frantically, securing the crate as best as he could. A small explosion rocked the area and he stumbled backward, coughing. He looked around. People were evacuating, some crying, some panicking. Then he noticed her again. She moved with incredible speed, guiding panicked travelers toward exits without touching them. It was as if her presence alone commanded obedience. When the emergency passed, the spaceport returned to an uneasy calm. Alex wiped soot from his face and looked for her, but she had vanished into the crowd. His heart pounded, not from fear, but from the realization that the woman he had shared a simple meal with was no ordinary being. That night, Alex returned to his modest quarters aboard the station. He placed his empty container on the table and sank into his chair, trying to process the day's events. Then his communicator beeped. A message appeared. "You are requested at the Galactic Council. Urgent." He frowned. The Galactic Council was reserved for the most influential beings in the galaxy, leaders, scientists, and strategists. What could an ordinary human engineer possibly contribute? Before he could dwell on it, a news broadcast flickered to life. Across every channel, a holographic image of the alien woman appeared. Her glowing form filled the screen and Alex froze. The narrator's voice was awed. "This is Selara, the overseer of star networks. Her intelligence guides the energy of thousands of stars across multiple galaxies. Her presence stabilizes civilizations, and she has taken notice of a human, one who offered her sustenance in a moment of need." Alex leaned back, disbelief written across his face. The woman he had fed, she controlled the stars themselves. He felt the weight of his own insignificance pressing down, and yet a flicker of pride warmed him. A simple sandwich, that had been enough to get her attention. He realized that his life, ordinary until this moment, had changed forever. Tomorrow, he would meet her again, not in fleeting moments by a port bench, but at a council where the fate of galaxies could very well be influenced by his choices. Sleep did not come easily. Alex stared at the ceiling, imagining the stars beyond his window. Some of them might be alive, controlled by Selara, who had smiled at him as if the galaxy itself could bend to the kindness of a single human. And he had offered lunch. Morning came, and with it, an escort from the council. Alex's heart raced as he boarded the sleek, silver ship that would take him to the council chambers. Along the way, he tried to prepare himself mentally. What could he possibly say? What could he possibly do? The ship glided into a massive structure floating above a nebula. The council chambers were enormous, filled with representatives from countless species. Some hovered above the floor, others stood on platforms, their forms more alien than he could describe. Yet all eyes turned as Selara entered. She moved slowly, deliberately, her presence commanding attention. Alex noticed that even among beings with incredible powers, she exuded authority without effort. Her gaze briefly met his across the chamber, and he felt a sense of calm, as if she were silently telling him that he belonged here. The council's chair, a being of crystalline form, spoke. "Today we discuss a matter of utmost importance, one that could affect the stability of multiple star systems, and among us is one who is unexpected." Alex's name was called. He stepped forward unsure, his mind racing. Selara's eyes followed him, and for a moment the vast power of the universe seemed to focus on a single human. He could feel the weight of expectation, the scrutiny of countless species, yet also a strange warmth, as if his simple act of kindness, the sandwich, the juice, had been recognized across the stars. He took a deep breath. Whatever came next, he would face it. Because sometimes, Even the smallest human gesture could ripple across the galaxy and touch the lives of beings who controlled the stars themselves. The doors closed behind him, and the council discussion began. Alex knew one thing for certain: his life was no longer his own. He had glimpsed the power behind the stars, and it had smiled at him. And with that, part one ends, leaving Alex on the cusp of adventures that would test not just his courage, but the very essence of humanity itself. Alex Mercer stepped into the council chambers, every nerve in his body alive with tension. The air hummed with energy, some natural, some unnatural. Beings of countless forms and abilities filled the hall. Some hovered inches above the floor, others shifted between solid and semi-transparent states, and a few radiated faint heat, light, or sound as part of their biology. Each one had an aura of authority, yet all eyes turned toward Solara as she entered. She moved slowly, deliberately, her translucent skin flickering like starlight. Even among the most extraordinary of beings, she exuded power and calm that drew attention effortlessly. Her gaze found Alex, lingering for a moment that felt like hours. He felt as though the entire universe had focused on him. Then, just as suddenly, she looked away and the council resumed its positions. The council's chair, a crystalline entity with facets reflecting the nebula outside, addressed the assembly. We convene today because the stability of several star systems is at risk. A faction seeks to harness the energy of multiple stars for domination. Their methods are reckless, and their intent threatens billions of lives. We must act decisively. Murmurs of agreement and dissent echoed through the chamber. Alex shifted nervously. He had no experience with diplomacy or interstellar politics, yet he remembered Solara's words. A simple act of kindness can ripple farther than you imagine. Maybe, he thought, human instinct and empathy could contribute here. The chair continued, and among us is a human, Alex Mercer, whose presence has been noted by Solara. He has observed us from an unusual perspective. Let him speak if he chooses. Alex felt every eye turn toward him. He swallowed hard. He was just an engineer, a person who fixed engines, calculated trajectories, and occasionally made sandwiches. Yet now, with the eyes of the galaxy upon him, he realized that his choices could affect not only Solara, but countless civilizations. He stepped forward. I don't know if I can contribute in the way you expect," he said, his voice steady despite the pounding of his heart. "I'm not a strategist, a diplomat, or a fighter. I'm just human, but I can share something I've learned." He paused, looking at Solara. She gave him the smallest nod, encouraging him to continue. Even small actions, small choices, can have consequences we don't always see. When I offered lunch, I didn't think it would matter, but it did. Maybe what we call kindness, honesty, or understanding maybe that can guide decisions even here. A ripple of murmurs swept through the chamber. Some delegates seemed amused, others skeptical. But Solara's eyes softened, reflecting a faint glow of approval. Alex continued, gaining confidence. "We are all powerful, all capable of great things, but power without restraint, without understanding, can destroy worlds. I've seen it in our own history. Humans make mistakes, yes, but we also learn, adapt, and care for one another in ways that even technology cannot measure. Maybe that perspective can help us prevent catastrophe here." Solara's gaze remained on him, unwavering. Then she spoke, not aloud, but in that same resonant way in his mind. "You speak truth in simplicity. That is why I noticed you." Before Alex could react, alarms blared again. A holographic display flickered to life, showing a distant star system under attack. A rogue faction had begun siphoning energy from a nearby star. The consequences were immediate. Unstable energy streams threatened the planets orbiting it, and if left unchecked, the star could go supernova. Panic swept through some council members. Several tried to devise military strategies, while others debated regulations and negotiations. Alex watched, his mind working rapidly. He remembered how small gestures mattered, how direct action sometimes prevented disaster better than endless debate. He raised his voice. "We don't need to fight with weapons yet. We need to stabilize the star first. Selara, if you can guide the energy flows, I can help coordinate planetary shields and infrastructure. We can prevent the catastrophe without unnecessary destruction." The room went silent. Delegates looked at Alex, then at Selara. She studied him, and then, slowly, she nodded. Together, they enacted the plan. Selara focused her power subtly, channeling the star's energy in precise patterns. Alex worked with the Council's engineers, rerouting planetary shields, stabilizing atmospheres, and ensuring that evacuation protocols were in place. It was a dance of intellect and power, human ingenuity and alien abilities combining in a way no one thought possible. Hours passed. Exhaustion weighed on Alex, but he remained focused. The star's energy, once chaotic and destructive, began to stabilize. Planets that had been on the brink of devastation now orbited safely. The rogue faction, realizing their plans had failed, retreated. The council chamber erupted into cautious applause. Selara turned to Alex. "You acted with courage and clarity, even when you had no authority. That is rare." Her voice in his mind carried a warmth he had not expected. Humans have potential far beyond what they imagine. "Today, you reminded me why I observe this species." Alex felt a mixture of pride and disbelief. "I just did what felt right," he admitted. "I didn't know I'd actually make a difference." "That is exactly why it mattered," she said. Actions driven by instinct and empathy often surpass actions driven by ambition or fear. You have reminded the Council, and me, of the value of humanity. The Council's chair spoke again, acknowledging Alex's contributions. "It appears that sometimes, even the smallest beings can influence the greatest powers. Alex Mercer, your perspective has prevented catastrophe and may have set a precedent for cooperation across species. The Council recognizes your efforts." Delegates nodded, some murmuring approval. Alex felt the weight of their attention, but also a growing sense of belonging. He had started as a simple engineer, carrying a sandwich in a busy spaceport. Now, he was part of something that spanned galaxies. In the following days, Alex worked alongside Selara to implement preventive measures across vulnerable star systems. He learned the intricacies of energy networks, planetary shields, and interstellar diplomacy, often relying on his own human intuition when data alone could not provide answers. Selara remained a constant presence. She rarely spoke aloud, but her guidance was always precise, her approval quietly steady. Alex realized that while her power was vast, she valued his humanity, the ability to see beyond raw data, to consider ethics and empathy in decision-making. One evening, as they observed a newly stabilized star system from the observation deck of the Council headquarters, Selara spoke aloud for the first time in his presence. "Alex, you have reminded me that power, even on a cosmic scale, is meaningless without understanding and care. Your simple act, your sandwich, was a signal of this truth." Alex laughed softly. "I never thought my lunch would matter across the galaxy." "It did," she replied. "And it will continue to matter. Humanity has the potential to influence more than you can imagine. You, Alex Mercer, have demonstrated that even small choices carry immense weight." He looked out at the stars, feeling their light differently now. Each one was not just a sun, but a system of life, energy, and potential catastrophe, all held in balance by beings like Selara, and now, in part, by humans like him. Weeks later, the Council acknowledged new policies emphasizing cooperation, empathy, and the inclusion of humans in galactic decisions. Alex continued to serve as a liaison, bridging the gap between ordinary human reasoning and the extraordinary powers of other species. Despite the grandeur of his new life, Alex never forgot the simplicity that started it all. Every meal he shared, every conversation he had, every choice rooted in kindness was a reminder of how small actions could ripple across unimaginable distances. Celara remained a mentor, a guide, and occasionally, a friend. And sometimes, when the council was not watching, she would walk with him along quiet observation decks, their eyes tracing the stars that she could control and he could only marvel at. Alex realized that the galaxy, with all its complexities, politics, and dangers, had room for humanity, not because humans were the strongest, fastest, or most intelligent, but because they could care in ways others sometimes could not. He thought back to that day in the spaceport, the collision, and the simple act of offering lunch. One small gesture had opened a path to unimaginable adventures, friendships, and responsibilities. It was proof, he realized, that even in a universe filled with beings of incredible power, the simple, human act of kindness could ripple across the stars and change the course of history. Celara turned to him one last time before they parted for the evening. Remember, Alex, it is not the power you wield but the choices you make that define the future. Alex nodded, looking out at the glittering cosmos. He felt small yet capable, ordinary yet extraordinary in the moments that mattered most. Humanity had not conquered the stars, but it had earned a place among them. And Alex Mercer, the engineer who had once offered a simple lunch to an alien woman, understood that even the smallest actions could carry the weight of galaxies. The stars shimmered above, alive with energy, possibilities, and hope, and in the quiet glow of distant suns, a human and an alien shared a moment that would resonate for generations. In that instant, Alex knew one thing for certain: humanity's story was just beginning.